All right, hey, welcome to Sunday School this week on the internet. So this week we're talking about Psalm 8. I'm going to read it real quick and then we're going to get into a little bit of background and stuff on it. So Psalm 8, this is the New Revised Standard Version. So it says, and this is a psalm that David wrote. O Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. Out of the mouths of babes and infants you have found a bulwark because of your foes, to silence the enemy and the avenger. When I look at the heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established. What are human beings that you are mindful of them, mortals that you care for them? Yet you've made them a little lower than God and crowned them with glory and honor. You have given them domain over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, all beasts of the fields, birds of the sky and fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the sea. O Lord, your sovereign, Lord, our sovereign, how majestic is your name in all the earth. So a little background on this psalm. Like I said before, David wrote it. And C.S. Lewis, who's a really famous author, Christian author, calls it a beautiful, short, exquisite lyric. Another commentator calls it the perfect example of what a hymn should be. There's a sense throughout of the majesty of God cannot be contained. David starts small and he gives an example of like infants and babies and how God created them, and then he gets bigger and he talks about creation. And when he's talking about creation, he's using the same language as the creation story in Genesis. He starts it off specifically in verse 3 when he says, when I look at your heavens, the works of your fingers, the moon and the stars that you have established. He's boldly saying that we can find our orientation, which orientation is finding yourself relative to something. So we can find our orientation in God through this. We can find where we are relative to God through this, through the creation story. He then shifts and doesn't talk as much about us personally, but he talks about us as a whole. So humanity. He talks about us as humanity, and he uses the same kind of language as Genesis creation story again. In specifically verses 6 through 8, it says, you have given them dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under their feet, all sheep and oxen, and all beasts of the fields, and birds of the air, and fish of the sea, whatever passes along the paths of the sea. So in ancient Near East times, humans were created to kind of like take the workload off of these lesser gods that they had. So the reason humans were made were to relieve these gods, to work for them. They're basically slaves. They're God's slaves. And in the Genesis story and in this, David was referring to us not as slaves, but as God's partners. We're image bearers of God. And that sets us apart from everything else in creation. All the sheep and oxen and beasts of the fields and birds and fish and whatever is in the sea. We are image bearers of God. And that sets us apart. Obviously, I don't know if it's obvious, but I think we all struggle with our orientation to God, our orientation with God, where we are relative to God, our place in the hierarchy. And I think that Psalm 8 is an interesting look and can create some interesting discussion over that topic. So I encourage you guys to read the questions that are attached to this post or this email or however you are consuming this media and discuss it with your parents, your friends, youth staff. Give us a call and we are more than happy to discuss these questions with you.